Hello again, Struck. As you probably have heard yesterday, the Diablo IV dev team shared a bunch of information about the game, including the release year being 2023, and that the final class on launch, the 5th class, will be the Necromancer. A bunch of mixed feelings on my end regarding this, you'll find out why, but I will try to talk about everything that was shared with us. So this video might be a little longer than you might expect, but I'll still try to keep it as short as possible and still cover everything and provide my own opinion about what's to come. We'll be talking about the Necromancer, about player choices, about character customization, about exploration, social systems, and endgame. Based on what they shared in the All Hell Breaks Loose in 2023, Diablo 4 is coming dev blog. I'll try to include the link in the description. It should be there unless something glitches and it doesn't let me, but look in the description for the link to that one, where I'll be commenting on what I'm seeing. So let's start one by one. First of all, let's start with the intro. They're saying that during the 2022 Xbox Game Showcase event, we told the story of an unremitting conflict between the Burning Hells and High Heavens, foretold the return of Lilith, Sanctuary's demonic creator, and shared scorching hot details around the next installment in the Diablo saga, Diablo 4. They're saying that before we continue reading where I'm reading, they're excited to announce that Diablo 4 will launch in 2023 on Windows, PC, Xbox One, and Series XS, including PlayStation 4 and 5, and it will host cross-play and cross-progression for all platforms. On console, players may also slay demons side by side with a friend through couch co-op. And they have another bone-chilling announcement again. As I mentioned, that's the Necromancer being the 5th and final class available at launch. That doesn't mean final throughout the whole game. There will be more classes, but not on launch. On launch, we'll have Barbarian, Druid, Rogue, Sorceress, and Necro. Whether there will be something similar to a tank, like a Paladin or a Crusader, I hope for a Paladin or a Crusader, but more Paladin. We'll see. That probably will be coming with the DLC. Most likely in the first big expansion we would see 2 classes, or at least 1. That's why they said available at launch. They didn't say 5th and final class, they said 5th and final class available at launch, because as tradition is in Diablo games, expansions bring buy-to-play expansions bring classes. So let's move on to the Necro first. Introducing the Necromancer. As a priest of Ratman known by outsiders as a Necromancer, the word death evokes a sensation of power, potentially even excitement when it graces their ear. These legendary summons bend blood, bone and darkness to their will and subjugate the ranks of the undead to carry out their bidding. Unknowing adversaries who pick a fight with this death-defying class will quickly learn they've made a great mistake, for they are darkness in its wake. Something I like to say here is they're not mentioning much about the balance between life and death, which is what Priests of Ratma and the whole Ratma thing is. Sure, obviously it's it's about death, but it's also about balance between life and death. We have a casket full of news to share with you around how the Necromancer class will decimate and reanimate demons in Diablo 4. Take a gander at the Diablo 4 quarterly update, which I will discuss later. Actually, I've already discussed this, the March one, but there should be a June one, which I'm just not seeing on their website yet. I'm assuming this one is the one. I think they must have made a mistake, or maybe it's coming later tonight. Yeah, I think it's coming later tonight. It's 10 AM PDT, so this one I'll probably cover as a separate video. The June 2022 Diablo 4 quarterly update, where I hope they would show more stuff. They're saying that we'll be able to learn the class's new mechanics, such as the Book of the Dead, with lead designer, class designer Adam Jackson. So more about the Necro in a separate video. Now let's move on to other areas. Your own choices will be important, apparently. You decide. At the heart of Diablo 4 is player choice. There is one singular way to there is no one singular way to play the game. Players will carve their own path forward, shaping their destiny in a non-linear way of their choosing, which sounds exciting. How it will be in practice, we'll see. This ethos extends to character customization, player skills, exploration of Diablo 4, shared open world, its social systems, and of course the end game. Let's dive into these gameplay systems they're saying. And yes, diving in with character customization first. Obviously, we don't need to talk much about that. I've already had a video back in the day talking about all the stuff that you can change, such as how the character looks as a character, how the armors look, different materials, different colors, and different physics attached to those materials, and so on. But yeah, whether you decide to be barbarian, druid, necromancer, rogue, or sorceress, you'll be greeted by a fleshed out character customization offering a plethora of options. And it's not just the aesthetics, it's also in the expansive skill trees, obviously, and not just the skill trees, but also the paragon boards. So yeah. At first glance, the paragon boards look a little boring. I did make a video back in the day talking about it. And from the footage you might be seeing throughout that video, you would probably notice a little bit about the paragon boards around the end of that footage. I'll leave it repeating in the background. But yeah, it looks like there's gonna be a lot of basic nodes. All of them leading to a major node, and then again basic nodes, major node, and so on, which is normal. Normally that's how it goes, but I hope those are kind of different, because in the one I see in the video, all the basic nodes have the flame symbol, the exact same flame symbol. Does that mean they all give the exact same thing, like fire damage or burn damage or whatever? I need to see more in-game footage and a dev covering that paragon system, and I need to know what the maximum paragon level will be and how long it will take to reach the maximum paragon level, because this is one of the red flags for Diablo 4. If they make it grindy, as hell, if they make it that you need more than 100 hours to max out your paragon levels, 100 playing hours, then that's just gonna be boring. I don't want another Diablo 3 where you need to grind for a fucking month to reach maximum paragon level. I want to reach maximum paragon level, and the real fun begins there, when I start experimenting, when I start changing my paragon boards, when I start changing my skills and builds, and messing around with the items I have found, and so on. This is where the real fun begins, when you max out your character. And before that, it's just the boring grind, which normally a good game would make less boring. Hopefully Diablo 4 is one such. And hopefully the grind to the maxed out is not as long as it was in other games, including Diablo 2 and 3. And Immortal, let's call it that way. So, okay, the next area. Explore your way. And they said that there is no singular way to traverse Sanctuary in Diablo 4. They leave that up to our motivations. The world is vast in scale, home to frigid mountain ranges, sand-swept canyons, plague lands bubbling with pestilence, and many other biomes. All with no shortage of demonic dangers to encounter and secrets to uncover. You won't simply traverse through an empty world in Diablo 4. Every inch is built for combat. As you navigate around, taking notice of the wounds Lilith's return has inflicted upon the land, you encounter a new type of evil, strongholds, and this is something I really want to talk about in detail. I wish they included more information about that, but apparently those are vocations the Burning Hell's minions have claimed for themselves, casting a shadow of darkness upon them for you to lift. So think of it as bases, as parts of the map that are potentially gonna be bases. You free those strongholds, they become yours, they become villages, they become outposts where you can probably respawn and access NPCs. So clearing out the stronghold will bring about permanent change to these locations. But what does permanent mean in this way? does it mean entirely permanent, or does it mean later on maybe the demons can take back the stronghold and you would have to defend it again? Permanent could not really mean permanent in this way. They don't specify it. Because it could be a constant struggle or strife to keep all strongholds occupied. And it could mean that players could intentionally let strongholds get captured so that they can recapture them. If there is a system for recapturing strongholds by the monsters, stuff like that. So if they make it a one-time event only, it would have one downside, and that's that only players who have been there when it has been cleaned out can get it. But if they make it in a way where the monsters can recapture strongholds, there's gonna be another side, and that might be that people might intentionally let them get recaptured so they can take them back from the demonic hordes for rewards. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, in Guild Wars 2 something similar was happening. People kept repeating certain open world events in a certain zone, that quest chain, just to farm it for experience, and it was a good experience. So yeah, clearing a stronghold may also reveal new dungeons to delve into and other hidden experiences. And speaking of dungeons, Diablo 4 contains almost 150 detailed dungeons. Close quarters experiences for you to root out evil throughout the main questline and beyond. Each time you step foot in a dungeon, its layout and distribution of adversaries will vary, keeping the challenge alive while still allowing you to strategize a way to overcome the dangers within. Meaning those 150 dungeons probably would be small dungeons, not like a massive instance, but a small area that is randomly generated and has randomly distributed enemy types, different enemy types and different enemy, I guess, packs. So that's interesting. That's a good thing. There are definitely good things about this. And they're saying also Sanctuary is alive, with demons to dispose of. Aside from dangerous dungeons and heavily defended strongholds, there are also walkout events to be completed, solo or with a team, in the name of glory and rewards. And for daring heroes craving an especially hardy challenge, towering world bosses roam the world with a desire to end those who oppose them. Band together with fellow defenders of Sanctuary to topple these nightmarish titans. Here is another very touchy subject for me. World bosses. I love that there's walkout events. Reminds me of the event system in Guild Wars 2. But this needs to be made in a way that there is no kill stealing. In Guild Wars 2, anyone who has attacked a monster gets rewarded. Their own instanced wood. In Diablo Immor, whenever you attack a regular monster or a pack, only the first hit gets to claim wood from it. Sure, you might get some experience and gold, but not the proper drops, like in Ancient Elites, for example. So hopefully they don't do it like Diablo Immor and do it like Guild Wars 2. Everyone who has touched, even with a flick on the forehead, even if they barely did damage, everyone who has participated towards killing a monster or towards cleaning an event should get rewarded, regardless whether they're in the same team with others. Guild Wars 2, good place to see how shared instanced wood for every person works based on participation. And now about world bosses, as I said, it's a touchy subject for me. If you look at games like the Korean game that's currently in alpha beta kind of testing, Mad World, you would notice that their world bosses have very short respawn timers, and I love that. I love that some bosses take 7, 10, 15 minutes to respawn, instead of Diablo Immor, where you have to wait 40 to 80 to 100 hours for a world boss to respawn, which sucks. I don't think more than 1 hour is acceptable for a world boss. I think most bosses, the mini bosses, the not so difficult world bosses, should be at 5, 10, 15 minute respawn intervals, whereas the biggest ones, the hardest ones, should be at an hour respawn rate. That way, regardless of what time you play at, regardless of how often you play the game, whether it's an hour or 2 hours, you would still be able to at least enjoy a world boss in a play session, even if it's just an hour long play session. And that's a good thing to consider. Hopefully they don't fuck it up and make world bosses that spawn once a day, once a week, and bullshit like that. And speaking of bullshit like that, hopefully they don't make daily quests, weekly quests, and other fear of missing out desperate attempts to make players log into the game. Next, they're saying social systems, teaming up with other heroes to rid Sanctuary of bloodthirsty demons or going head to head against them in combat has long been a staple of the Diablo experience. Diablo 4 will continue this tradition by offering both fulfilling PvE and PvP experiences, providing players with the option to pursue Lilith on their own or with the aid of others is just another way players have additional agency when playing Diablo 4. To make demon slaying with friends a breeze, we have rebuilt the party forming experience so that regardless of character levels or where you may be within a particular questline, you can still band together, which is nice. This is kind of like one of the good things of Diablo Immortal. There are not that many, but that's one of the good things. Borderlands 3 style, monster level scaling, enemy level scaling, content scaling, let's put it that way. It's nice. You can be level 10 playing with a level 30 and each one is fighting content of their own level. And that's nice. So this is what I am assuming they're referring to with the paragraph I just read. They're saying this is also our intended experience for players on different platforms looking to cleanse Sanctuary of evil together. And they're saying, but if vanquishing hordes of demons with other players is not your preference, you may prefer a more mortal opponent. Mephisto, the Word of Hatred, forever looking to instigate a skirmish, has cursed specific areas of Sanctuary, transforming them into fields of hatred. I've got a video back in the day talking about fields of hatred when they first announced them. But the biggest thing you need to know here is that here is one of the potentially worst things about the game. If they don't handle PvP and PvE item separation the way it needs to be, kind of like if you look at Guild Wars 2 structured PvP, this has the potential to be the worst part of the game. Hopefully they don't fuck it up. How can they fuck it up? You might be wondering. Well, it's simple. If they make it so that you can PvP with your PvE items, that is one way of fucking it up. Another way of fucking it up is by making PvE useful items, gear and materials and whatever drop from the PvP zone. The best way to handle PvP zones is separating the PvE from PvP gear. PvP zones should drop PvP related items, whether it's some tokens that you use to exchange for PvP sets and legendaries and stuff, PvP items, whether it's directly being able to get PvP drops. That's something to keep in mind. And PvP gear should not be needed in PvE and vice versa. PvE gear should not be useful in the PvP zone. So that if a player doesn't want to do PvP, they shouldn't feel forced to do PvP Fields of Hatred runs to try and get some materials that you can get there that you need for PvE. So basically anything in the Fields of Hatred you can obtain should not be useful and needed for a person who doesn't want to do PvP and just wants to PvE. PvE drops should not be useful in the PvP zone, so they should be separated PvP only gear that boosts your stats against players and other player damage related things, such as damage reduction versus players, such as crit chance versus players, such as crit damage versus players, things like that have versus players in them, and those items should only drop in the Fields of Hatred, and Fields of Hatred should only accept such items in your equipment. And yeah, something like that. There is a way to do it. I'm not a game designer myself, but I know that it's bad to mix PvP and PvE. If you look at Diablo Immortal, you would notice that it was extremely awful how PvP and PvE weren't separated, and you didn't have open world zones there for PvP. You had fucking structured PvP in Diablo Immortal, which was kind of like Guild Wars 2, but it didn't have the Guild Wars 2 separation of that. And I mean, we'll see how it goes, but this is one of the biggest concerns for me, how they will handle the separation between PvP and PvE zones. And now moving on to endgame offerings. They're not saying much about that, but they have talked about some of those things before. Closing the final chapter of Diablo 4's main story will be a monumental moment, but it will certainly not signify the end of your hero's journey. We want players to see the end game of Diablo 4 as a new beginning, filled with quite a few decisions ahead on what to experience next. First, you might try to take on nightmare dungeons, which are transformed and teeming with enhanced demonic dangers and added difficulty in the forms of new objectives and added afflictions to the dungeon. Which, the way I understand this, is the dungeons you can uncover throughout the game as you journey through the story will have nightmare versions, which would be boosted or let's say made harder with stronger enemies and with map modifiers, dungeon modifiers, afflictions as they're calling them, and new objectives. This sounds good. Hopefully they don't overdo it. But hopefully there are like 2-3 different difficulties for people to scale based on how confident in their equipment they are and their build. Hopefully it's not just a normal nightmare, but normal and then 1 or 2 more or 3 more additional. I would say, let's say you have normal dungeons and then the nightmare has 2 or 3 difficulties. That would be great for me. So you can start off slightly slowly transitioning into the hardest one, but they shouldn't overdo it. They shouldn't do something like the torment levels in Diablo 3 where you have the constant power creep, number pushing, boring bullshit. 2 or 3 difficulties are useful, good enough for people to partake in an activity. So hopefully they consider that. Now they're saying perhaps you want to branch off into another direction, say place down roots for your future. Look no further than the Tree of Whispers, an end game system that will provide you with frequently cycling world objectives and bounties that reward you with legendary gear, experience, crafting materials and more. And this has a lot of red flags. The way I understand it, they would have fear of missing out in this system. Hopefully that's not the case, but the way they describe it sounds like that. I want to see more detailed information about this. Please provide us with a very in-depth analysis, very in-depth preview of what that system is and how exactly it works, because right now this seems like the biggest red flag so far when it comes to endgame. See, it says, I'm gonna quote again, provide you with frequently cycling world objectives and bounties. That means if they're frequently cycling, that means maybe every day something changes or every week something changes and you have to redo it every day and every week. I really like Diablo 3's bounty system. You can do as many as you want, whenever you want, as much as you want, for as long as you want. There will always be bounties to take for you there. And that was great. This one would probably have some objectives to go and do certain things in certain areas and kill certain monsters in certain zones. Hopefully it's not something that would make you log in every day to get X amount of activities. Hopefully you can do it as much as you want without limits. And every single minute of your playing the Tree of Whispers activity is rewarded. We'll see. Please don't add daily, weekly, monthly rewards in any shape or form anywhere in the game. If the game is good enough, believe me, we will play it without forcing fear of missing out on us. They're continuing on with this paragraph. In Sanctuary there is unrelenting ever-present danger waiting for you at every turn. To best whatever the burning hells may throw your way, you must grow stronger. Once you reach max level, the Paragon board will unlock, and with it, hundreds of optional paths to further customize your hero's build. And this is another red flag. Paragon systems, many of us detest them. The way they've done the Paragon, instead of having trees, having boards, is nice. It's extremely nice way of doing it, but how many Paragon levels will there be? How quick will we reach that maximum level? As I mentioned, for me it's not acceptable to need more than 100 hours of endgame grinding, ideally 60 or 80. Spend grinding experience to reach maximum Paragon level. It's not about the grind to reach maximum level, it's about what happens once you reach the maximum Paragon level. That's when the real fun begins. When you start experimenting, when you start unlocking new synergies between your items and your Paragon boards and your skill trees. So please don't make us grind like zombies. We like fighting zombies, we don't like being the zombies. We're Diablo players. I know Diablo 2 players love grinding, and the whole thing about Diablo 2 is grinding to reach level 99, but not all of us enjoy this. And not all of us enjoy endless paragons. It's not really endless in Diablo 3, but it's close to endless. It takes forever to max out the paragons in Diablo 3. Please be considerate of how some of us don't have all day to grind and can't log in every single day to play a game, have other things to do. So please make the game enjoyable to both the hardcore zombie grinders and the casual players, and make it that every minute spent is worth it and you don't feel like the Paragon grind is endless. So yeah, then there is a message from the Diablo 4 team that they thank us for joining around the campfire and learning about what's to come and so on. Now here's the speculation. Everyone's gonna speculate the date 2023 launch. Is it gonna be an open beta launch? Is it gonna be a full launch? We'll see. It's gonna be risky to pre-order the game, considering Diablo 3 was an awful game at the beginning. It had real money auction house. Eventually Diablo 3 became better, they removed the real money auction house, but again, a lot of the things that were advertised about Diablo 3 were not as promised, including the PvP, which they kept promoting the game around, and then we didn't get it when Diablo 3 launched. So take it with a grain of salt when they give us certain things as previews, and then those things might not end up in the game. Hopefully Diablo 4 doesn't disappoint. Hopefully it's not like Diablo Immortal. Hopefully it doesn't have endless Paragon levels, fear of missing out, and other bullshit like that. And my guess is June 2023 is the either open beta soft launch or a real launch of the game if they decide to skip the open beta. I would love to help with NDA testing and provide my experience, my feedback in the game. So if there is a program to sign up for testing with non-disclosure agreement where you can't share anything about the game, that's fine. I do not want to see a game filled with bugs that could have been solved, could have been found by your average gamer. And hopefully they have enough in-game testing, in-house testing. My guess is June 2023 will be the month we get it, because June is the month of Diablo. So a year from now, most likely we would see the game, we would be able to play it. But it's again a risky purchase, because you never know what bullshit they might pull on us. And hopefully they have somewhere where you can sign up for beta testing. Even if it's, as I mentioned, NDA testing of the game, I would be willing to help them make the game better for the sake of everyone else. I'm a bug magnet, so testing is what fits me a lot. So yeah, tomorrow I'll be making a video based on what they bring us as information about the Necromancer, or maybe it's not gonna be tomorrow because I might be busy tomorrow. But I will try to make a video dedicated specifically to the Necromancer once they release enough information about that. To get notified when I upload more content like this one or other builds and guides for Wooter and not so Wooter games, you can subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button to not miss out on notifications. As well as keep in mind there's something called memberships on YouTube, which lets you be a paying member for my channel to get access to perks such as emotes and badges made by me, as well as the option to get one-on-one tutoring for the very basics of Adobe Photoshop, Premiere and After Effects. And memberships can be cancelled at any time if you no longer want to be a member. Thanks for watching all the way until the end, Struck Web. Keep it cool until next time, and goodbye.